on the average, seniors are getting probably anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500 a month. $2,500 if they plan real well. If they've just gone off their retirement through their life at a normal job. My mother kind of worked a normal job her whole life. I think she gets $1,300 a month. Try living on that.
Yeah.
She's moved in with me now, but before she was paying rent, lights, heat, phone, and by the end and food and medicine. By the time the month comes, you're dead broke halfway through the month.
Right.
So we do have to do a better job of that, especially with seniors. I never thought I'd be a caregiver for my mother. She fought me for, the funny thing was when Drew got the house, because he paid in on half of this house that we bought, and he's like, Dad, I want Grandma to come live with us. She's, 89 years old. She needs somebody to take care of her. And my mother is the most stubborn, as she says, I'm the most stubborn Irish person I ever met. She goes, not living with you guys, I'm staying home. Well, she broke her arm, and she wouldn't tell anybody for 2 days, back in February. So we went over, took her to the hospital. She didn't want to stay in the hospital. It was just a bruise. She was coming home. The lady said, it's a bad fracture. A surgeon really is going to look at it. Surgeon? For what? It doesn't even hurt that much. It's all black and blue down her whole thing. So we did convince her to go to the hospital. Hospital said you had to stay a couple days. And then they were like, well, to get better, you have to go to a nursing home. I'm not going to a nursing home. I'm going back home. And she couldn't, because she couldn't do anything.
Right.
They go, okay, show us here in the hospital, pour a coffee, make a coffee. She couldn't even do that.
Right.
She goes, I can do it at home because your machine's complicated.
Yeah.
Same machine she had at home. But make a long story short, she was at the nursing home for a while, got better, came back to her apartment, her COPD acted up, and forced her to go back to the hospital, which she was there probably then 2.5, 3 months.
Yeah.
But the sad thing about seniors, up until recently, there hadn't been much programs for people to stay at home and take care of their parents. Mm-hmm. So parents were kind of forced to go in a nursing home. And some legislation now has some of these plans where, a caregiver, like I am a caregiver for her, mm-hmm. You get a stipend, a daily stipend to take care of your parents, which keeps you, if you can't work because it's taking care of a parent, I mean, it's not making you $1 million, but mm-hmm. it's keeping you alive to keep taking care of that person. I think it's a great thing. A lot of seniors I've talked to, even now, want to stay at home.
Right.
They think that plan is great. It does need, some more perfections. There's agencies involved that get a cut for basically
right.
being your payroll person. But, some of those agencies would cut out. I mean, when they first talked to me about that program, I could either put my mother in a nursing home where they would pay Title 19. Oh, we can talk about Title 19 for a minute. That's a good thing in Connecticut. Title 19, where they would pay a nursing home so much, but my brothers and I would have to come up with some money. We just, I talked to my son and myself, and we agreed. No, my mother's, she's getting to a point at 90 where she has a little Alzheimer's. Well, 91 Sunday.
Yeah.
But for the most part, she's pretty much still with it and really wants to be around her own things.
Right.
So.
We're in that generation, you and I are in that generation where we're caregivers to our parents, and we both have adult children living at home.
Right.
Which leads me into the next question I have for you, which is...
This is a tough show tonight. I shouldn't have listened to Come In With Dan. You're in trouble, McSparrow.
Which is the mandatory $15 an hour minimum wage.
Oh, boy. What'd you do, get the script from the day today, huh? They must have sent it to you. Boy, a lot of these questions were asked there. But, quite frankly, and I'll answer it the same way I answered them, so I'm right spot on. When I was 14 and I dropped out of school, my father said to me, my mom was really sick, so I moved in with my dad, and he said, we have 2 rules in my house. You either go to school, which I highly suggest, and you don't have to work, and I'll feed you into everything. But if you don't go to school, remember Monty Hall?
Yeah.
Well, behind curtain number 2 is a job, and you will be working.
Yeah.
So, me back then was kind of flamboyant, and I was like, yeah, we'll see. So I went to school for a while, I grew up in a country school, coming to a city school was night and day, and I just didn't like it and couldn't stay. So he caught me skipping school and went to work. But back then, I started off at Bellman, believe it or not, at $3.35 an hour.
Right.
Which was like, well, I guess comparative to today, it was probably what our minimum wage is sort of like.
Right.
But to get to a better job there, to be head bellman or move up in the hotel chain, which my father ran, you had to, by merit. You work hard, you get promoted, boom.
Right.
And that's what I did. Now this whole talking of going to $15 an hour right out of bait, most of those jobs are entry-level jobs,
right.
And I'm not hitting on anybody. Everybody has to start somewhere.
Right.
But, like working at a parts store or Burger King or McDonald's or Subway.
Right.
Well, when they, as they called it in the restaurant business, when they take that plate and divide, your employment cost, your insurance cost, the cost of your food,
Right.
the profit margin, every time they're given that raise, they've got to cut something out of their profit margin to make that work.
Or raise their prices.
Or raise their prices. Or even do this. How do you like Walmart now? You see cashiers there?
Right.
No, you don't. You see animated machines
Right.
called do it yourself. You want us to pay our employees more? Then you do the work for them.
Right.
So what it's doing is hurting those employees that had those jobs because they're eliminating them, which were 10 or 12 bucks. Well, my friend works at Walmart, 12 bucks an hour.
Right.
It's not great, but it's better than where you might start out somewhere else.
Right.
You have opportunities there, but they're cutting those opportunities. So every time they raise that minimum wage, they're forcing those businesses to raise the money on consumers, which consumers are just not going to come.
Right.
I mean, now look at it. There used to be a time, when we were probably growing up kids, you go to McDonald's on $5 to have a great meal.
Right.
Now the cheapest thing, you get 2 cheeseburgers and a Coke for almost $6.
Right.
And that's at minimum wage at around $8. So if you're adding on $7 an hour
Right.
to minimum wage, figure out how much that meal is going to be then.
Right.
It's going to be $10 or $12.
Right. I know. I heard that Friendly's has a new thing too, where they're getting rid of the waitresses. You actually have a kiosk and you put your
Kiosk on
order
your
in
table,
it.
sure.
Right.
Yep.
Well, we have a phone call.
Uh-oh. It's probably for you.
Hi. Thanks for calling.
Well, hello there, Mrs. Dan.
Hi.
This is Michael Fred Hudson calling.
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I just want to throw Andy a hardball here
Okay.
because I supported him all the time. He ran for political office in New London. But what I see going on, and what I've asked all the candidates that have appeared on Dan's show, is not necessarily what he can promise to do or what he'll try to do, but when elected, what can he deliver? And by that, I mean, if and when he gets into political office, how do we know he's not like a, what is the old saying, a leopard that will change his spots and hold no one accountable for the corruption that happens in Hartford? And the reason I bring this up is because Connecticut, even though it doesn't say it in our state constitution, it's implied that we're a commonwealth. Right. So any monies that we collect are supposed to be for the common good to sustain the viability of the state. And when I see things like them giving $10 million to bail out the Amistad Corporation, it kills me. That's corruption. The return on investment for bailing out that Amistad group put no money whatsoever into the pockets of the average Connecticut resident. And I'll hang up and wish him good luck on his campaign.
Good. Thanks for the call.
Oh, there's a familiar voice. I actually
Yeah.
saw him the other day. He didn't see me. I was behind him in a restaurant. You know what? So I'll start out by answering this way. I don't believe, Mike, in making promises because politicians tell you what they want you to hear at the door to get elected. I've told Marie's helped me over the years on our campaigns, and I'll tell you something. I sleep very well at night because I tell you this at the door. I will promise that I will work my rear end off for you day in, day out. Corruption like the Amistad, I won't put up with. Corruption like bailing out Hartford, and now the person that was on the council, Tong, is running for Attorney General. So he suckered a deal to bail out Hartford. He suckered a deal to get $20 million or more every year going forward for Hartford, so that I, who don't even live in Hartford, have to pay for that debacle. That is corruption. And Mr. Hudson, you're absolutely right. I won't tolerate that in Hartford. I will look for like-minded people. A matter of fact, Joe Markley sued Governor Malloy on that $10 million toll study because he said he's trying to give him money to his friend before he gets out of office.
Right.
We can't do this stuff. First of all, we don't have the money to do it.
Right.
Second of all, you know what? And people were shocked last night. I was at this event about retirement in the state and what you should do as a responsible legislator. And I told them, I'm not taking your pension. I'm not taking your insurance. I really believe, and I think Mike, being a constitutionalist, believes this, I believe, that you were to serve the public for the public good.
Right.
This is not a job. It's not a career opportunity. You don't wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to be a politician forever.
Right.
I really hope that if I do get in office and I become ineffective, my supporters tell me, Andy, you're not cutting it no more.
Right.
You're not doing the job you're supposed to do, and I'll bow out and let somebody else take over.
Right.
Because my job there is to solve the problems of the public, not solve Hartford. I don't work for Hartford. I work for you here at home.
Right.
And I've told people that at the doors endlessly. I had a guy a couple weeks ago at the doors, Murray, telling me, you got to promise me something to get me elected. Promise me you get my kid a job at the Capitol. Promise. No, that's not the way it works. My promise is to make sure you have a better life in Norwich, Connecticut, and do everything I can do to achieve that.
Right.
We had some people, Mike, the other day that are very disgruntled. They've come to they've asked their state rep for 9 years to fix a problem with a off-ramp of the highway that affects their land directly. There's massive mosquitoes there, there's rodents that come through there, and all the state would have to do is go in with chainsaws, clean out the culvert, take down all that brush, and it would be fine. But do you think they could bother? Every year this guy I'm competing against goes to them, gets a donation, asks for their help, and then doesn't help them. And that's just wrong. It's just flat out wrong. And this is what's going on in Hartford. We cannot, we're supposed to represent the people that sent us there and not get caught up with the
Right.
pressures of Hartford. And I personally, hopefully have enough tenacity to go up there and say this favorite word I've heard for many years of my life. No, we're not doing it.
I think a lot of politicians have lost sight of the fact that they're public servants.
That's right.
Right.
I think, we need to go back about 15, 20 years ago when a public servant was doing for the good of the public.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something. Peter Nystrom, the mayor in Norwich, first time I call him Peter, he'll be mad. Hopefully he's not listening. But I always call him Mr. Mayor for the respect factor and for the fact that the first time I heard him speak when he was running for mayor, he said, my job as mayor is to make sure I'm your fiduciary, that I don't spend any more of your money than is absolutely necessary to keep our city going.
Right.
That's what a public servant's supposed to be. Hartford could take an example, even if I don't get elected, Marie, on how Norwich runs, because they are fighting for the good of their people.
Right.
And that's what you're supposed to do.
Right. I wrote a quote that Mayor Nystrom said, and he said, you have to stabilize the budget and be realistic about revenue, invest in infrastructure, support those in need, have a spending cap, and and create jobs. Because we're not the party of no, we're the party of no nonsense.
Yes, very true.
Right. So we don't have a whole lot of time, but I want to get one more issue.
Man, you're tough tonight.
And
And you're supposed to be on my side. I hate to see if you're against me.
I am on your side. I want to know, I think the people of Connecticut should know, or especially the people of Norwich who will be voting for you, what your position on the Second Amendment.
Second Amendment. Okay, so for many of you that don't know, I grew up in Vermont. I've owned a firearm since I was 6 years old. My family was very stern on the NRA going to get a hunter safety course. We hunted for food up in Vermont when I was kids. We deer hunted in the spring. We'd hunt for partridge and pheasant and stuff. And we, first of all, my father's rule was you don't shoot anything you're not going to eat. So you shoot a skunk, you're eating it. You shoot a porcupine, you're eating it. And we learned that wasn't a cool thing to do.
Right.
So we never did that. We hunted for food. We ate the food.
Right.
But we also learned the training factor of respect for the weapon and respect for the fact that this is something that could take somebody's life.
Right.
So I take the Second Amendment very seriously. But I also believe that you should have the right to bear arms. I've been supported every time I've run by NRA with a good rating. I don't know, I think my rating is A, they've told me. I haven't seen it this year. I've been introduced by Scott Wilson, who lives here in town, by the CCDL. I helped those guys a lot. The last meeting I was at, they were talking about getting hunting here in Connecticut on Sunday. It would raise a lot of revenue. Mm-hmm. I didn't even, when I first moved here, I didn't know you couldn't hunt on Sundays.
Right.
I thought, we hunt in Vermont on Sundays, But for some reason, old blue laws have affected that. But on the safety factor, you know what? I'm going to stand on the side of people that I'd rather see you have the right to protect your family at any time in your own home or in your own persons than not have that right.
Right.
I've read the Second Amendment all through law school and beforehand, and I believe it as written means exactly what it said was written. They're trying to put enabling clauses in here that nibble away at it
Right.
to take the strength of the Second Amendment away, and I'll never do anything that goes against the Second Amendment.
Right.
I know a lot of people that said, I think some of the factors with guns is not having the proper knowledge and training of a gun and the respect for it.
Right.
Is some of those problems. You know what I mean?
But not not all gun owners are going to go shoot up someplace.
No, and that's the biggest problem for me. If you have to go through an FBI check and you go through a police background check and you are afforded your permit, all right, you've done everything legally to obtain the right to carry that firearm. I mean, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday in Norwich who's who's a CCDL member, and he said to me, "What's your stance on having pistol permit, countrywide?" I said, "Absolutely. They do a federal background check on you. It's just like you have your driver's license. You can go through any state with your driver's license.
Exactly.
Why shouldn't you be able to carry a pistol permit? Why do I have to buy a pistol permit for every state that I'm going to go into to have a pistol permit? Vermont, you don't have to have a pistol permit. New Hampshire is now revoked that you don't have to have a pistol permit.
Right.
Mass is very tough,
Right.
Myself, sometimes when I'm driving, I leave my pistol at home because I forget that if I cross that Massachusetts line and
Right.
that's in my front possession without being broken down in other compartments, I'm in serious trouble.
Right.
It is tragic when you see school shootings and
Right.
stuff. But let me tell you something. There are a lot of tragedies, murders going on different ways.
But
And
don't
I'm
you
gonna tell you
think that
something.
those are more mental health issues than gun ownership issues?
Well, some of it is mental health issues, but some of it also is, something, somebody that want to go out and do serious detriment with a firearm to somebody.
Right.
If you're in a soft zone where you see a sign outside, this is a no gun zone, no guns are here, you already been told you can walk in there and shoot the place up, there's no deterrent.
Right.
Now people get upset, oh, what if you can't have guns in schools? Well, you know something? That deterrent might stop stuff from even happening without you even ever having to use it.
Right.
It was like when I was a kid, when the death penalty was around and we were young, back then sometimes they would actually show the end of an execution.
Yeah.
The gallows, they've taken this guy out there. I'd be like, wow, my God. Now there's no deterrent at all. Death penalty now means in 20 years you're back on the street.
Right.
Death penalty meant then you took somebody's life, you were paying the ultimate cost for it.
Right.
I think that training too should be done earlier in life with younger people, so that they understand. Maybe they don't want to be involved with it, but they understand. This is a serious item here. It's nothing to be played with. You have to have a respect for it. I mean, a gun's not going to jump up and hurt somebody by itself. So,
Right. Exactly.
But mental issues, is a problem. I mean, I had a family member that had a problem a few years back. Took her life and took some other people's life on mental issues. Matter of fact, we were discussing mental issues yesterday in Norwich at a forum. And sometimes suicide issues you can't really spot sometimes. I mean, a good friend of mine 20 years back, me and my friends, we had lunch with him. He was all happy. He was always happy all the time.
Yeah.
Never suspected he was going to do anything. He called me up during a football game that night and said, it's nice knowing you. I'm going to jump out the window and hang myself. I just had lunch with him at 5 o'clock. Me and my friend were sitting there that had lunch with him, and we're laughing like, yeah, it was around Halloween, haha, he's pulling a prank. He jumped out the window and hung himself.
Yeah.
So there was no sign that he was going to do that. He never had that in his background. So it's hard to say what springs off that mental mind to make him do certain things. But mental issues should be looked at in firearm safety. I mean, they don't give felons guns for a reason.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But law-abiding citizens who have, shouldn't have a problem and should have the right to bear arms.
Right. So in our last few minutes, is there something that you would like to touch on?
Well, one of the things that, other than streamlining motor vehicle that I've been talking to people about, the tourist dollars, owning a hotel, being in the hotel business with my parents when I was younger, being involved with managing, probably in my course of the 39 years I've been around. No, but in the course of my life of being in that business, originally when they came out with the hotel tax in Connecticut here, it was to enhance tourism, and they've raised it consistently. I think when I think I was done with my hotel, it was 12%. Now I think it's 17%, which is supposed to go to this tourist fund, which never goes to tourist fund because look at the tourist business in Connecticut; it's terrible. So looking at other hotels over the last few years in other states, what they do, which I think would be a great idea for Connecticut, is take that tourist tax, which is an entity tax, drop it, not an entity tax, I'm sorry. Forget exactly how they word the tax, but take that revenue and invest it back into the towns where those hotels are to enhance them promoting their own tourism for that town per se. Maybe they would use it for something else in the town that they need, and lower that tax to make people want to come here. Because, like for instance, you're paying almost 7% sales tax in the hotel, and then you're paying 17%, room and occupancy, they call it, tax on top of it. So you're almost paying 24% rate. So if you get a room at $100 a night, you're paying $125 for that room, where, you know, most people, they come, they say, oh, I got to pay sales tax $7, who cares? But then they go like,
Yeah.
you know, which is crazy. So if that revenue was put into the town itself, most of the towns in southeast Connecticut want to promote themselves. New London with things, Mystic with things,
Right.
Norwich with things.
Right.
It would help do that instead of putting it to another pot, which never gets used properly.
Right, the grand list, I mean, the general fund, yeah,
Yeah, the slush fund that never gets used properly.
right,
But you know what? That's why some of the talks I've heard with Stefanowski about zero-based budgeting, it has some merit to that, because you know what? You're starting out with a flat zero every year.
right,
Each department has to show what they need, not what they want to run that department.
right,
You cut out a lot of fat and waste that way, because you know what? You're not getting what you might want. Oh, we want new equipment here. Well, you may not be affording new equipment this year, so you have to wait.
right,
But at least that puts everybody on the same even keel every year, and it eliminates a lot of problems with overspending, studies that go nowhere.
Right.
You know, there was no need for this governor in his last term to blow almost $90 million with the two things he did.
right,
And it's all on borrowed money. So, you know, when you borrow on $80 million for bonuses, you're really paying back $120 to $170 million
right,
with the interest and everything. You know, they don't just lend you that money as a bond for free. You got to pay
Right.
interest back on top of it. So, you know, it's absolutely out of control in Connecticut. And, you know, every time this year, we all have to be brave enough to say, we're stopping to kick the can down that hole.
right,
It's, you know, it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be tough. It might stink for 6 months to a year, but it's got to be stopped now.
right,
Because if it doesn't, this state is done, and people better start believing it's done.
right,
Now, some of us are fortunate enough where we don't owe anything on our house or very little, where we can go, hey, you know what? Selling my house for whatever I can, leaving, it's your problem. A lot of people are not in a position to leave.
right,
And our youth are leaving by the carload because there's no opportunity here for them.
Right.
They do not have the American dream here anymore, where they can have home ownership, good pay, raise their family where they want in good schools. They're losing that opportunity.
Right.
So that's terrible.
right. I agree, I totally agree. I think that it's tough to see a bright future if you're just starting out here in Connecticut.
Oh, it's crushing right off the bat.
Right.
If you come out and you have student loans, and the cost to have an apartment is high, and the cost for utilities is high, how are you going to start? You're starting out in right behind the 8 ball right off the bat.
Right,
And there is not many jobs being created that might fit in your opportunity. So you're going to look for the place you make the most amount of money and spend out the least. It's only common sense.
and the current government isn't helping.
Not at
You're
all.
starting out and you're gonna have to pay tolls, which, by the way, is not gonna be beneficial for tourism here in Connecticut,
Oh,
having
absolutely
tolls
not.
all down our highways.
And we're going to all the money we're going to bring in from the tolls. First of all, the employees are not going to be Connecticut employees. They're going to be from New York. So nobody here is benefiting from a job. And second of all, we're going to have to pay back almost $30 billion to the federal government. And all that money they're making on the tolls, where's that going first? To pay back the federal government.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
it's a bad situation.
All right, Andy, well, I wanna thank you for stopping by tonight.
Thank you very much. Been a while since I've been in the studio. It's great.
Me too. I want to encourage you, if you live in the 46th district in Norwich, to vote for Andy. He's a hard worker, and when he says that he's going to do something for you, he really means it. So I know we've talked about this before. It's a tough road in Hartford, and you need to have like-minded conservative people up there helping you to straighten this out.
Right, it's not a one-person thing like everybody says, I can. It's us in Hartford, and I will search out the people that will work with us to get that goal done.
Right.
And those are the people who will work hard together, and we'll form a team to get the things done that the people from each district want done,
Right.
not the pressures of Hartford want done.
Right.
I can
So-
handle the pressure, believe me.
So if you want to look for Andy on the ballot in Norwich, you'll find him on the Republican line, and you'll also find him on the Independent line. So Andy, we got 18 days till Election Day. What are you doing?
Doors, doors, doors. We are doing 200 doors a day, so you will see me if you haven't seen me.
Great. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.